Oh, right. So we have sort of called this whole series the Bhakti Circle series, right? So what actually happens in a circle is, right, everyone is requested to speak their mind. It's not a monologue, right? It's not a monologue. So essentially, I am going to be sharing a little bit of some frameworks, etc. And I would like you to probably reflect on these frameworks. I would like you to think about how you could apply some of these frameworks back to your workplace, back to your lives, etc. And that's the reason why we call it the Bhakti Circle, right? Bhakti simply means devotion, right? So, when you go out to nature, right? You see nature, it's so beautiful. When you go to a park, you appreciate the serenity in a park. When you go on a holiday to some beautiful locations, you just appreciate the natural beauty. So just like when you look at a painting, right? When you look at a painting, you appreciate the painting, you appreciate the artist who had actually, captured his heart onto the canvas. Similarly, right? Just like at the end, behind the painting is an artist. So behind this material nature, there is also a higher power. There is an artist who had actually orchestrated all of this. And bhakti is the process of actually just appreciating the divine force. Bhakti is the process of expressing our gratitude for what we have actually received. What have we received? Even oxygen for breathing, right? Shelter, food, this physical body, right? All of these are gifts from the divine power, from the universe. And therefore, bhakti is nothing but just expressing our gratitude, our love to the universe for having provided us this. Okay? All right. So what will we cover in the next 8 weeks? Right? It is it's a series for self-discovery, for us to understand who we are in essence. Why do we behave in a certain way? Why do we get triggered? Right? And what keeps us in check? What provides us a peace of mind? You know, science today is still not able to answer hundreds and thousands of questions which have already been answered and nicely documented in the ancient scriptures, be it the Buddhist teachings, be it Christianity, be it Hinduism, be it as captured in the Vedas. So our agenda is to bring this wisdom to you, right? Some of these may be complicated frameworks, but don't worry, we will try to make them relatable to you, right? So this is all rooted in sacred knowledge from the ancient scriptures. And I have a passion of trying to make this relatable to real life. And what do I mean by that? I will actually share with you what research today is actually proving to us, right? Around the same concepts. Like for example, if you look at University of Wisconsin, there is a department which is just focused on mindfulness. What is research around that topic of mindfulness revealing to us? Can this be extrapolated back to the scriptures? Okay. I also would like to, you know, assist you in cultivating self-awareness. As I mentioned moments ago, right? Why do we get triggered by certain episodes in life, right? How do we go about ensuring that we can embrace inner peace, right? Everyone speaks about consciousness, but what is consciousness? Everyone speaks about the self, but who is the self, right? Right? If you look at, the Japanese concept of ikigai, what is ikigai? And what is the root of this concept of ikigai? It actually comes from the ancient scriptures, the Buddhist scriptures or the Hindu scriptures, right? And how do you go about harmonizing our body, our mind, and our spirit? So this is the entire series for part one of this, wisdom sharing. We'll kick off today's session with how do you go about harmonizing our body, our mind, and spirit through meditation. There are many types of meditation, right? We will discuss one form of meditation. Next week, we will look at this whole concept of happiness. What is happiness? What is temporary happiness? Is there a concept of permanent happiness? And then we will look at consciousness. Right? What is this entire element of consciousness? Right? What's the missing link? In the week number 4, we will go deeper into understanding the mind. The mind can be the best friend. At the same time, the mind can be our worst enemy. Right? And then we will look at understanding our moods. At the same time, the modes of material nature, right? Why is it that we feel trapped in this material world? We will then look at the law of karma, right? For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. We will discuss that. And then we will speak about free will, destiny, and we will look at, the evolution in spirituality. Okay. Any questions? Feel free to just unmute and just throw your question to me. I sincerely hope you will join the entire series of 8 weeks, right? So Hui and I, we are just doing it out of love, right? Out of essentially sharing what we have learned. It gives us lots of satisfaction. There's no fees, there's no payment requested for any of this, right? Whatever we have learned, because it has added so much of value to our lives and the lives of our loved ones, we feel that we could also share this with others, and that's the entire agenda, right? And I just want to assure you that when you are sharing your reflections, when you are sharing your point of view, your realizations, your plans for application, this is a totally judgment free space. No one is going to be judgmental on whatever you have mentioned. All right. Because we know at the end of all our behaviors, there is a why. There is a why behind why someone is saying something. Okay. Any questions? I work for Harvard Business School, and there's this concept of cold calling. Essentially, if there are no questions, then I will just cold call and ask one of you a question, okay, or ask you to share your realization on a particular topic. How are we with time, Hui? It's 8 o'clock, so we are like close to half an hour past the start of the event, right?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Namita.
My question is, are these series linked to one another? Is there a flow in case, due to whatever reason, if you miss out on one session, does it get carried forward, or they are all very different in their own topics and ideologies?
Very good question. Yes, there is certainly a link as you progress from one week to another, right? So there will be higher order stuff, higher order thinking, higher order concepts and frameworks shared with you as you progress from week number 1 to week number 8. In the event that you can't make it, please drop an email or a WhatsApp to Hui, right? And we can share the recording with you. But I think all of us are corporate citizens, and we know that we do not have time to actually watch recordings. Let's be truthful. Do we really have time to go back and watch recordings? So if you are not present on that day, there's a high chance that you might be missing, some of the frameworks which are shared. Yeah. But, if you are serious and you are really wanting to ensure that there's no break in the flow, you may watch the recording. We will certainly record all the sessions.
Thank you.
Most welcome, Namita. Okay, so no questions. We will just move on. Right. So, for those of you who have attended the BMS session, right, we spoke about body, mind, and soul, Sometimes we call it the body, mind, and spirit, right? So there's just so much of investment in the body, right? We go to, we go to the best fitness instructors. We eat the best food, right? Sometimes the best food may not be the best for our body. We invest a lot on the physical body. But what about the mind? How do you go about investing, right, in or upgrading our mind, right? And what about the soul? Is there a process to, uh, you know, to increase the well-being of our soul? So the ancient scriptures explain that while food, right, while food is important for the physical body, when it comes to the soul, when it comes to the mind, or when it comes to the spirit, there are other types of nutrition which can assist these three elements, right? So food is for body, and for the mind, the soul, and the spirit, it is number one, pranayam, which is our breath work, right? For the body, again, you can engage in yoga, in asanas, etc. But for the mind, meditation is very, very important. And today, the word meditation is a big buzzword, right? There are many different forms of meditation. We will try to capture some of this, right? And something which we should never underestimate is the power of sound, right? I'm not sure if you have heard of this Japanese researcher who had done amazing work on crystallization of water, right? And he subjected different samples of water to different sound vibrations, right? In one sample, he would be, expressing gratitude to the water. In another sample, he would be just yelling and scolding vulgarities and, not very nice language to that sample of water. Sometimes he would capture water from, lakes where there's an amazing spiritual atmosphere, etc. And his research actually indicated that you get beautiful crystallization as and when the water samples are subjected to positive sound vibrations, right? Or when the water sample is from lakes which are, surrounded by beautiful forests, a very, very peaceful atmosphere, etc. Right? So just like we need nutrition for the body, we need exercise, we need physical yoga exercise for the body, for the mind and for the soul, sound vibrations can make a huge difference. Mindfulness, meditation can make a huge difference, and breath work can actually make a huge difference, right? There's sufficient research captured in today's best medical journals on the power of meditation, right? So Professor Robertson, I may get his name wrongly, from University of Medicine in Wisconsin, he has done a lot of research in collaboration with Dalai Lama, right? In fact, this was an instruction given by Dalai Lama to him, that why don't you, come up with a faculty, a department which focuses on the power of meditation. And he has been doing amazing work around this. And in a nutshell, his research has actually shown that when we engage in breath work, when we engage in mantra meditation, when we engage in visualization during our meditation, this whole process of doing it again and again and again on a daily basis will get us to become much, much more compassionate to others. much more at peace with others, much more in in appreciation of whatever good and bad which may actually happen, and also in assisting us in setting our expectations correctly. That is the power of meditation. That is the power of visualization during the meditation. This is the power of breath work. And that is the power of engaging in positive sound vibration. Okay. So this is where you see that modern science, modern research using the latest in lab equipment is actually pointing to the secrets which have been revealed in the Vedas. So meditation is the art of calming the mind, focusing on probably an object, probably a sound vibration, and it can be used for relaxation, stress reduction, and also bringing us an awareness of the important interconnection between our minds and our body. Right? Meditation can also help us in managing our physical and emotional pain. I can assure you that when you engage in the meditation, which we will be discussing today or next week, you will realize that you would have set your expectations right. Difficulties will come in this world, but you will see challenges, you will see difficulties from a different perspective altogether. You will see them from the mindset of having a growth mindset, right? Meditation will actually, it's an amazing tool for coping with apparent disharmony in our life. It can reduce psychological stress, right? Psychophysical stress, and sometimes even physical stress. Of course, proper dieting, getting enough exercise and rest, and having the right attitude towards ourselves and people who are in our lives, all of this is really important. But meditation can actually help us specifically to relax our mind and our bodies, right? Thereby, reforming a conscious connection between our mind and our body. All right. Okay. Any questions? All okay? Sounds familiar? Okay, wonderful. Let's move on. So this whole process of yoga is essentially to harmonize our body, our soul, and our mind. Okay. At the end of today's class, if you forget everything, no problems. Just remember, what is yoga? Yoga is essentially harmonizing the body, the mind, and the soul. Right? In another definition, yoga can also be seen as connecting ourselves with the superpower, all right, or with the super soul. Yoga means to reconnect. In fact, the word religion or religare, right? It's a Greek term. Religare is a Greek term. Essentially, it just means to reconnect our forgotten relationship with the divine. Okay, and today there are an amazing number of yoga types, right? In fact, it's sad to actually see that in certain Western yoga studios they even have a beer yoga, right, where they actually bring a bottle of beer, they do their asanas, and they try to balance it, etc. That's all nonsense, right? Okay, so these are the different types of yoga, right? Sometimes they say there are like 12 types of yoga. Sometimes they look at it at 4 types of yoga systems, 8 branches of yoga. But we will focus not on these asanas, because these asanas, the hatha yoga, is well taken care of by Hui Hui's practice, right? So she's doing all of that. But these 8 classes, we will focus more on the path of devotion, right? The path of devotion, expressing our gratitude to the universe, our appreciation, right? Our reconnecting our individual soul with the super soul. What's the process? Okay. So that's what the entire series is going to be looking at. So now I've spoken quite extensively. Now let's just spend some time and have a discussion amongst ourselves. What are the common pressures of modern life which is causing this disharmony in our lives? I think Tommy, you mentioned this when you started off your, introducing yourself, right? So, what are some of the common pressures of modern life? Can anyone just, you can chat it in, or just unmute yourself. If you ask me this question, I think it's the constant notification, it's the information overload, it's the work stress, right? That is like, giving me a feeling of disconnection, restlessness, right? Being always connected. Yeah. What else?
For me personally, it's feeling like I've not got enough time.
Exactly. Time pressures, right? Yeah. Wonderful. And at the end of the 8 sessions, I can assure you one thing. If we have been deliberately practicing what the scriptures are mentioning, you will see that time actually expands, right? The universe explains that the universe is time. When you invest in your gratitude, in your relationship with the universe or with the divine, you will somehow realize that, wow, the universe is actually facilitating the enlargement of time or the expansion of time. I can tell you from my own life, I was going through a tough phase in life, and somehow the universe orchestrated that I would evolve, or I would get into a different role altogether, which is actually providing me a much more work-life balance today, right? And yeah, so let's wait for the entire eight sessions to be over, and you may get some answers to the challenges which we have. And certainly I agree with you, right? It's the pressure of time. It's so much to do, especially with AI taking over a lot of our Gen AI, taking over a lot of the work which we have been doing. The expectation is that we should somehow add a larger amount of value to our organizations. It's going to be really tough. Okay. I have a sleeping baby. Okay, that's fine. No recordings will show. That's fine. All good so far. Paradox of choices. Yes. Yeah. Paradox of choices. Do I engage in this? Right. There's just so much of distraction. Yeah. The mind will keep on telling you, just do this. Let's do this. Right. I was once in New Delhi attending a wedding, and they had made some very nice kachoris. These are like curry puffs, right? And it was like amazing. It was full of coconut and so nice, so tasty. I went for one, and my mind kept on telling me, when you return back to Singapore, you will not get a chance to eat that. I went for the second one, and the mind kept on telling me, go for the second, go for the third. Why are you stopping at three? And I just went on gulping at least 10 to 12 of these puffs or kachoris. And then when I went back home, I was on seat number 0 the entire night, right? It was like really bad. And then at the same time, the mind was asking me, why did you behave like a greedy guy? The same mind which was telling me, go for it, the same mind is now telling me, yeah, you should have stopped. Why did you go for it? Do you not have discipline? Right? So the mind can be the best of friends, and the mind can be the worst of enemies. Paradox of choices. multitude of distractions. Thank you, Nat. Right? Okay. Anyone else before we move on to the second point? Okay, wonderful. So how do you then nourish the body, the mind, and soul? Earlier on, I alluded to the point that, for the body, exercise, the right food, the food in the right mode of material nature. We will learn all of this in class number 4, class number 5, right? How does food in goodness affect you, your mind, your body? And what about when you are eating spicy food? What kind of detrimental effect can it have on you, right? What can alcohol do to you? We know that, right? But anyway, we will provide all of this from the scriptures. We will provide you with a framework on analyzing the environment. How do you go about orchestrating an environment which energizes you, right? How do you go about, orchestrating your home environment, your office environment, so that it's just providing the positive vibes to you, the right positive energy, as opposed to something which overwhelms you, which drags you down. Okay, so this is like a short primer to what is actually coming up in the next few classes, right? We know that to nourish the mind and the soul, meditation, right? Sound vibrations, all of this can actually help us in a big way, including breath work, etc. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, let's see who we have in our class today. I'm going to do a little bit of a cold call. Hi, Ellie. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes.
Hi, Ellie. So
Hi.
if someone approaches you, right, on the street and asks you, who are you? Who do you think you are? How will you answer that question?
I think I shall say that I'm just a compilation of all my experiences.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Ellie.
Okay.
Ash, what about yourself, Ash? If someone were to ask you, who are you?
I would probably say, good question.
Okay.
I wouldn't know what to say. Would just give them my name and not think anything beyond that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Ash. Jane,
Yes.
who are you, Jane? Who are you?
Mm. Uh, I'm not sure.
Okay,
I don't know.
no problems. That's an amazing answer. Thank you very much. One last one, right? Let's see. Tori. Hi, Tori.
Yes.
Right. So, I meet you in the gym and you are like, carrying a 100 kilo weight, and I approach you and I ask you, who do you think you are? Who are you?
I would say wrong person because I don't do
Okay.
100 kilograms. No, I'm just, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on which country I'm in. If it's in Singapore, usually I say I'm just a foreigner working in Singapore. That's usually the, usual answer.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So what I have, you can mute yourself. Thank you very much, Tori. So what I've actually done is a simple exercise to essentially find out from you who you are. But just a sampler, right? 6 answers. Everyone is focused on the body, right? I'm a foreigner. I'm this, I'm that, etc. But the scriptures, be it Hinduism, be it from the Vedas, some of the other religions, they explain that this body is just a machine, right? This body is just a machine. This morning I was driving my kids to work, and I saw that there were like hundreds of different models of cars, beautiful cars, etc. The cars were moving, but there was a driver within each of the cars, right? And I went to a showroom after that, thinking that I will buy a new car. The car was stationary, like a machine, and I went into each of these different cars to actually have a test drive. So what is the constant? The constant is that the body is the same, right? It's still a machinery. In all of these examples I've just shared with you. But that is just the body, right? We need to go deeper to actually understand that we are not this body. We are actually a spirit soul. All right? We are a spirit soul. The scriptures actually explain that this spiritual spark is what is providing consciousness to this body. In a few years' time, I may not exist anymore. I may just pass away, I may die. What happens is the spiritual spark or the consciousness would actually leave my body and look for another appropriate body. And this process is called reincarnation. So what is actually constant is that this spiritual spark remains the same. Its agenda is to provide consciousness to the body. Right? As we progress further and further into phase 2, phase 3, we will actually learn why is it that someone is born rich, right? Someone is born with a diamond-studded spoon in his mouth, while one may be, struggling economically, right? And what's the difference between an animal and a human? Actually, the spiritual spark is also there in an animal. There's no difference. Okay? So in essence, we are just a spiritual spark, which is providing the entire body with consciousness. Any guesses how big this spiritual spark is? Any guesses?
It's the size of a horse's hair.
Very close. It is actually, if you take a strand of hair, just one strand, and if you look at the tip of the hair, you divide it by 10,000 parts, that is the size of the spirit soul. It is so small, right? But it is so powerful. It is giving the body the entire consciousness. While this material body is material in nature, the soul or the spirit is actually spiritual in nature. When I say spiritual, it means it is divine. Okay, this body is actually material, but that spirit soul is divine in nature. Okay, I'll just take a pause here because I need some water. And this spirit soul, which is spiritual in nature, in terms of the quality of the spirit soul, it is the same as the divine power. You may call the divine power as God or Allah or Jehovah, right? Doesn't matter. All right, there's only one God. Right? Some of them, some of us regard God as the universe, right? So essentially the point I'm trying to make is this spiritual spark or the soul is constitutionally the same as the divine power. All right. But the universe or the divine power or God is just huge. But we are just so small, infinitely small versus God, who is infinitely, huge. Okay. So, in essence, right, at the end of the 8 weeks, when I ask you this question, it's not, I'm not Ash, or I'm not Pradeep Kumar, or I'm not Hui, I'm actually a spirit soul. And in this particular life, I'm given the body, and my parents have named me Pradeep Kumar. Okay, so that's the first fundamental principle which we need to understand. And this is, the foundation of all that we will be learning. So, accompanying this spirit soul is the subtle body. The subtle body consists of the mind, the intellect, and the false ego. Okay. What is the mind? The mind is the discerning power which we have. Sorry, the mind is the repository of all our experiences. All right. The mind is just a repository of all the experiences which we have. The intellect or the intelligence is the discerning power which is given by the divine to us. What do I mean by discerning power? Right? At 9 o'clock, what do I do? Do I have a glass of wine, or do I read a spiritual text? Or do I go for a run? Or do I, indulge in a heavy dinner? So this discerning quality or this decision-making quality is that intelligence, right? So we have the mind, which is the repository of all our experiences, the intelligence, which is the discerning or the decision-making power, and the third part of the subtle body is the false ego. Essentially, what the false ego is this propensity which blocks us from understanding that we are not this material body and we are a spirit soul. So this false ego, right, makes us feel that, no, I'm a Chinese, I'm an Indian, I'm a Mexican, I'm a director, right? Or I'm working as a clerk. So this false ego is what attaches us to this material body and not allow us to understand that essentially I'm a spirit soul. This ancient science is so important because the moment we realize that I'm a spirit soul, my wife is a spirit soul, my kids are spirit soul, my bosses are spirit soul, right? Folks whom I'm regarding as my enemy are spirit soul, then what do I actually see? Actually, we are all the same. We are all a spiritual spark. Folks in Israel versus Palestine, Ukraine versus Russia, if all of us basically go back to the fundamentals and tell ourselves that actually we are all children of God, we are just the same. It is just discovering which is differentiating us from one another. So this science of the soul can actually stop all of these wars. Okay, so let's take a pause and see if you would like to, share some realizations around this concept. Or what do you think of this? Is it making sense, or do you think this is like, some Sherlock Holmes fairy tale or whatever? Let's see.
I actually have a question, if it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I'm really enjoying the content, and I'm just curious about how we can really contextualize this. What I mean by that is like, how do we know that we are a spirit? So like, where is the validation? That's just one thing. And you mentioned the divine is much bigger. So why is it bigger? Like, and how do we know it's bigger? And I'm curious, does the spirit soul also perish because it's connected to consciousness? So if a person dies, does the soul also perish? So I just have a lot of these bunch of questions. I'm just sorry, but because you said this is very foundational, I just want to make sure I'm fully understanding the concepts. Yeah, thanks.
You know, Tori, I really appreciate this question because it is going to assist the rest of our friends over here in understanding this concept. So where is the validation? All right. You know, Pradeep Kumar is speaking to you right now. Maybe, just maybe, an hour later, he's dead. What is the difference between the same body who was alive and the same body who is now dead? It is the consciousness. Exactly.
Yeah, consciousness. Yeah.
So this consciousness is provided by the spiritual spark.
Okay.
Okay, that's point number one. Essentially, the only difference between a dead body and one who is alive is the spiritual spark. At the time of death, okay, so this is going into a higher order. At the time of death, the spiritual spark actually leaves the body. It is carried by this subtle body called the mind, the intelligence, and false ego, and it is carried to another body. So this spiritual spark does not perish. All right, it is eternal in nature. There was never a time when it did not exist, and there will never be a time when it will cease to exist. It is eternal in nature. I know it's hard to actually formulate this to understand this, but it is an axiom. Just like there was never a time when the higher spiritual powers did not exist, and you know, in future, the higher spiritual power, God, etc., you may call him, will still continue to exist. Similarly, the spiritual spark has always been existing. It is just that it's moving from one body to another. And how does it move? It is carried by the subtle body of the mind, intelligence, and false ego into the next body, right? So the next body is actually selected by Mother Nature depending on how I have orchestrated my life. In the event that I have been engaging in the right activities, then I will be given a body which is suitable for those impressions which I have engaged in. But in the event that, you know, I was like essentially causing lots of difficulties to others, then I may not have a suitable body, or I may continue to have a suitable body which allows me to continue to have those kind of experiences. So essentially what the Earth School does is, the Earth School is constantly providing us an avenue to improve ourselves. Okay, so you requested for a validation. The next question was, I said we are infinitely small, but we are spiritual, and the spiritual Lord is so huge, all right? He's infinitely huge. How do you go about making sense to this? What is my capability, right? I can have enough earnings. I can produce a family, all right? I may think I am the doer, but let's look at the spiritual, the powers of the divine. Look at all the planets which are, you know, just nicely rotating around, you know, Earth or the sun. Sorry, my geography is a little out, right? Just look at how these planets are just rotating around, the sun is rotating around, and you don't see them colliding, right? So this is the force of the divine. Can we do that? No, right? We can only, somehow orchestrate smaller level activities. Right? Does that answer your question, Tori?
Yeah, and then we can elaborate a bit more. So if a spirit is residing in one body at a time, that means it should correlate with the population of the world somewhat, right? Is my understanding correct?
Exactly.
So then, like maybe 20,000 years ago, there was much less population. Now we have 8 billion. What does that mean? Like, what were the other spirits doing?
Wonderful.
Because the number of spirits don't change, right? You said they don't perish, but they don't also get credit.
Okay. So the ancient Vedic scriptures explain that there are 8.4 million species of living entities. 8.4 million species of living entities. Some of them are, different species, genres of, animals, plants, fauna, flora, whatever, right? So there is an evolution of the soul, right? What we may see today as an animal could probably be evolving into the body of a human one fine day, or the body of a human may be evolving into the body of an animal if this person does not orchestrate his life correctly. And therefore, as far as the number of souls are concerned, it is a definitive number. It is just, it is a nice mix of between, the different types of species. And that's such an intelligent question you're asking, Tori. I really appreciate it. You are like, really thinking well ahead, man. I really love this.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the foundations first. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, this is Alexis. I have a question. So you were saying that there's no beginning and there's no end, and basically we just keep jumping from one body to another as some spiritual spark. So I'm wondering, what is the point? What is the whole point of this endless process?
Yeah, so you have already asked a PhD question. And let me try to answer you as simply as I can. So the scriptures actually explain that at one time, we were all in harmony with the divine. What do I mean by that? We as spirit souls, right? Our constitutional position is to serve the Supreme Lord, right? So we were serving the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. Okay. And then we wanted to enjoy independently from the Lord, from God. And therefore, the divine power created this material world for us to experience this life separately from the Lord, because we wanted to enjoy separately. And therefore, this material world was created. And therefore, as the Supreme Father, what the Supreme Father is doing is, when will my children be sort of tired of this material world and somehow wanting to reconnect back to me? And that's what religare, religion, is all about. That's what spiritual science is all about. It's about reconnecting the spiritual spark to the divine whole. All right? We were all in the spiritual world together with the Lord. But because we wanted to enjoy independently from the Lord, that's the reason why this material world was created. And, we experience, it's an earth school. We are experiencing, what do we make out of this, right? We can keep on enjoying and enjoying and enjoying and then not see a purpose to life. But someone else may say that my purpose is to reconnect back. My purpose is not just to work from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, just engaging in material work and forgetting what my individual spiritual nature is. My spiritual nature is I'm a spirit soul. I'm not this body. I need this body to sustain my livelihood. But at the same time, I need to understand what is my ultimate purpose. My ultimate purpose is I need to start reconnecting back with the Supreme Whole who has been giving all this facility to me. Right? So the essence is that it's not just about reincarnation. The essence is it reaches a certain stage where an individual soul suddenly remembers that, my God, all these lifetimes I've been enjoying and enjoying independently from the Lord. I've forgotten that this life is actually provided by the Supreme. Why don't I invest some time in reconnecting back with the Lord? Why don't I spend some time in reinvesting in this relationship? All of us spend, hundreds of dollars in decorating our physical body, right? With perfumes, with makeups, etc. But do we invest in decorating our spiritual body, our mind, our false ego, and our intelligence? Do we invest in this? The gross body is nothing but just earth, water, fire, air, and ether. All of this nicely combined together, right, to form this gross body. Right? And still there's just so much of magnanimity in our body. Just look at the capillaries. It's millions of kilometers of capillaries we have, veins, etc. Whenever I'm doing a call like this, you will always see my headphones wires, right? They will always get entangled. But have you ever heard of our capillaries getting entangled and a surgeon needing to put them in line again? No, but that is the divine intelligence which is there in our body. Just look at the complexity of a cell. The complexity of a cell is the same as the complexity of a physical city in a country. How much of complexity is actually packed in one cell? And yet people do not believe in the divine power. Everyone speaks about the Big Bang theory, that there was this huge pieces of matter which collided, and then all of this came by. Come on, where did this matter come from? Where did it come from? It has to come from a source, isn't it? All right, so quick answer to your question is, we need to somehow stop this reincarnation. The stopping of the reincarnation can only happen if we reconnect ourselves with the spiritual whole. If we begin to understand what is our constitutional position, and we begin to invest in this relationship between ourselves, which is our spiritual spark, and the whole spiritual Lord. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Really nice. Any other questions, please? And I'm mindful of the time. It's fine that we go beyond these 8 classes, but I think this foundation is so important, and that's the reason why it's good to spend more time.
I have a question.
Yes.
Coming back to the subtle body, you mentioned about the mind, intelligence, and the false ego.
Yeah.
Can you help us understand what is the difference between ego and false ego here? And how do you differentiate it? Because, when you talk about the term ego, it has a very negative connotation.
Exactly.
When you add the word false ego, what exactly is false ego, and how does it fit in this entire diagram?
Okay, I'll just focus on this concept of false ego. Essentially, this false ego is actually stopping us from appreciating that we are a spiritual spark. It is essentially the bodily concept of life. All right? I mean, I understand this philosophy that I'm a spiritual spark. But 99% of the time, when I'm in my material work, etc., this false ego is pervading my life and telling me that I'm just a physical body. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Right? So this conception of false ego stops me from appreciating that actually I'm not this physical body. In essence, I'm a spirit soul. This physical body is just given to me because of what I've done in my previous life. All right, so that's the concept of false ego. It is stopping us from appreciating that we are a spiritual spark. And why is it stopping us from appreciating? Because we, in essence, wanted to enjoy independently from the Lord. Right? Because we wanted to enjoy independently from the divine actually provided us with this subtle body component of false ego so that we can enjoy as much as we want. And when we are tired of this, when we begin to understand that actually there is much more than just this mundane material life which I'm engaged in, then this science will actually come to us. Okay? So in essence, it is just, the false ego is just blocking me from appreciating that I'm just a spirit soul. And this material engine, this material body is given to me because of my past karma.
Can I add one point?
Sure.
That the false ego thinks that we are God, we are the controller. That's why it's termed as the false ego. Like sometimes when we think like I'm so good, I can do this because I am good. But we need, in a different perspective, is actually we are being empowered to do it. Like we're just an instrument and we're being empowered and given an opportunity to do it. But the false ego will think that, no, I'm the controller. I'm the one who created this.
Thank you for the additional points, Hui. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, in the spirit of being, we started on time. Of course, we spent about 30 minutes because we were kicking off the session. We introduced each other. But, I want to be mindful that, it might be close to bedtime for all of you. And therefore, we will conclude our session today. Next week's session, I will be continuing from where I stopped. Is that fine with everyone?
We have one question from Jane. We could probably address it next week. We address it next week.
Okay. And what's the question, if you don't mind?
When our spirit moves to another body, is that with us? Why can't we remember what happened in our past life or previous life?
Okay, good. Some homework for you. On Netflix, there is a series, okay, on reincarnation. Hui will be sending you, the name of the series. It's a Netflix episode, especially. I think it's episode number 5 of. We will send the details to you. Watch that, and that will give you the answer to this question. It provides you with scientific proof on this concept of reincarnation. Why is it that sometimes kids can remember their past life? Right? Case in point, in this particular Netflix documentary is a kid who could remember who actually killed him, and the kid could actually bring the police force, etc., to that particular place. Okay, so we will continue next week. Thank you very much.
We have a group chat, a WhatsApp group chat that I've sent the link in the email. So please join the group chat where we can still continue our discussion there. So if you don't have the link to the group chat, please ask me, and I will be pasting it into this chat.
Okay.
Right
before we end today's class, I just wanted Pratul Venkatesh to unmute himself. Actually, we did this similar sessions in NTU, and he was like, there every week. And maybe, Pratul, would you like to share what was your experience going through the, similar kind of program previously?
Yeah, so think I can I have a lot to share, and like many interesting experiences on the journey of spirituality. In a sense, I would say that it took me some time, and how I started off is I would do the practices just a little, but in doing just even the little, I would see some benefit, and that got me the curiosity to keep learning more, and that's how I kept attending, kept joining the sessions and progressing. So there was actually an interesting analogy that I wanted to share, but I guess maybe I can share it next week as well.
No, just maybe within 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw that many people had a question about the soul and the spirit, and I think this is an analogy that can help understand some of the aspects of it. So you can think of the human like a big ship. So this big ship, there are two things it can do. It can control the direction that it's sailing, and it also has a very strong engine, so it can sail quite quickly. And in the same analogy, you can think of an animal like a smaller rowboat, like they're just rowing. So they have some control, but compared to a big ship, it's not as powerful. So in a lot of the spiritual texts, you'll observe that it's something like we want to sail from a rough sea to a calmer sea. That is our goal. So in a rough sea, there's also a fog. You cannot see clearly. And meditation, it's like it's like a lighthouse. It's the direction that you want to sail, and it's singing a song that keeps your crew working well together. So yeah, I've just introduced this analogy, but I've found that this one, I could put in a lot of concepts into it that I came across, and that seemed to explain it in this concept.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I look forward to meeting all of you next week. And if you feel that this is adding some value to your lives, and you'd like to share this with some of your other friends, you may share this recording and also invite them to actually join from next week onwards. Hui, over to you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining and keeping this a safe space to ask questions. And I'm actually very inspired by all your deep questions, because when I was starting my journey, I never asked so many deep questions. I was only thinking for myself. So thank you for keeping a safe space and trusting me and Pradeep with the deepest question, deepest doubt that you have, that you trust us to ask this kind of very provoking questions that if you probably ask someone, they might be offended or they might feel like, why is this weird person thinking so much? So thank you so much for being here and forming this circle with us. So we will see you next week.
Thank
Yeah.
you so
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Just one final point. My spiritual master used to tell me, if you are a Christian, this science will make you a better Christian. If you are a Buddhist, this will make you a better Buddhist. If you are a Hindu, it will make you a better Hindu. There's no need to change religion, etc. It's just to make you much more sincere in your path. All right. So all of these frameworks are just to assist you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night.